Live from Columbia, this is Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network. Be a part of tonight's show. Call us at 800-956-7266 or email talkback@sportstalksc.com. Now, here are your hosts for Sports Talk, Phil Cornblue.
No, not at all. The momentum, we had a lot of momentum. Perry came in there and pretty much he did a good job in my opinion. Just need to run the ball more.
What did you feel like the problems were when you got in the red zone?
I didn't get the ball.
Game like this, we just got to take one game at a time. Like, our goal is to win the ACC, and this one game before winning the ACC right here. So we just got to take each game at a time and see where it goes.
Good evening. Welcome into Sports Talk here on the South Carolina Radio Network. Kevin McCrary and the Professor Tom Hayes hanging out with you on a Monday night with the night off for a Jewish holiday, but we are glad to be with you. You heard there in the opening, Brandon Wiles, USC running back, who wasn't pulling any punches, wasn't hiding or mincing words. He wants the ball more, thought he should have had the ball more against Kentucky in that, I think, stunning loss for the Gamecocks against the Wildcats. And then Shaq Lawson, the co-ACC Defensive Player of the Week, who is getting ready for the quick turnaround against Louisville this week. We're here on Sports Talk to give you a chance to break down what you saw, what you heard, what you felt, what you may still be feeling from a USC standpoint as we recap the week that was and look ahead to the week that will be, a big week coming up in terms of matchups for Clemson. Their first real test, their first intriguing matchup coming up against Louisville, albeit a Louisville team that is 0-2. Takes a little of the shine off that matchup, but still I expect a very intriguing game there at Papa John's Stadium. And South Carolina heading down to Athens to face Georgia, a team they've won 4 out of the past 5 games against, but they're going to be a 17-point underdog when they play. That's how fast the gap has widened between USC and Georgia right now. You were at the game at Williams-Brice Saturday night, as was I, and that was a very tough pill for Steve Spurrier and the Gamecocks to swallow. A Kentucky team that, yes, they're getting better. You're at home. It's at night. Kentucky hasn't won on the road in over 2,000 days in the SEC. 5 years since they won any game on the road, and South Carolina breaks that slump for them.
Well, it's interesting. Actually, we got to see 2 different football games, first half and the second half. The one thing I will say is John Hoke has proven once he get in the locker room at halftime, like a lot of NFL defensive coordinators, they make the adjustments, and they look like a different defense in that first half. Maybe you should tell them the first half is the second half, and they'll play better. The game, I thought, looked like a team had to have help to break a long streak, and I figured it out. When that fumble on the 2-point conversion, they took back for 2 points, and they're only 2 points of the second half, which means for the second consecutive half, South Carolina's defense has pitched a shutout, but it was not enough.
And the way they're playing offensively right now, that was just too much for them to overcome. We'll break that down further coming up on the other side of the break. Your calls also coming up. got a lot of fun stuff coming up on the show tonight. We will hear from some different people from the games over the weekend. Brandon Wiles, you heard him in the open. We'll play his comments after the game where he very openly stated that he did not agree with some of the play calling there down the stretch in the second half, specifically around the goal line where the Gamecocks had multiple opportunities. They were knocking on the door and were unable to punch it in for a variety of reasons. Alan Knott got a really ridiculous penalty, and I say ridiculous, not that it was a bad call.
Right.
He got a personal foul. They had 2 personal fouls in the second half, one on Isaiah Johnson on a punt that backed them up 15 yards. So you got 30 yards in just dead ball penalties in that half. When you're down 17 trying to come back, you can't make those penalties. Those are the kind of things that get you beat. So instead of having first and goal at the 2, the Gamecocks get backed up to the 17. Somehow they did get a new series of downs. I'm still not exactly sure how that worked. Maybe they said it was during the play, but they got a new set of downs. They picked up another first down, but ended up kicking a field goal where you almost would think 4 cracks from 2 yards out with Brandon Wiles, who was averaging over 6 yards a carry. You're probably going to get in. They didn't.
Well, the interesting thing is I thought what Kentucky did a good job of in the first half was window dressing. Nobody can tell me in the first half that Kentucky's offensive line play was stellar. What they were doing is they were moving one direction. The defense trying to be aggressive, swarmed toward the blockers, and they just ran in another direction. A lot of misdirection plays where South Carolina never tried much misdirection. When their power group ran into a spot, that's where they ran. Where you could see if the quarterback would have – it's nothing there. It's not, but they never did it in a misdirection.
Yeah, the tackling was bad. Kentucky seemed a step faster than South Carolina in that first half, which you wouldn't expect the team on the road to come out there with that energy. The Gamecocks got off to a great start, at least with the interception and the touchdown, had an opportunity, but then Kentucky marched right down the field. They took momentum right back, and the Gamecocks were playing catch-up. Connor Mitch went down late in the first half with a separated shoulder, also re-injured the hip that he tweaked in the opener against North Carolina. He's might still be in the hospital. They said he was going to be there for a couple of days. A lot of swelling there in his hip, the separated shoulder. Initially, after the game, Steve Spurrier made it sound like Connor Mitch's season was over, but now it sounds like there's a chance he'll return. 4 to 6 weeks is the timeline they've been given, so we shall see. I'll say this, a couple of things. One, on the play he was injured, they need to take that play. It's that option play, the option pitch. They've been running it for a couple of years now. It does not look – it's never looked good. I saw a guy get crushed at Florida. I think it was Brandon Wiles that got taken out at the knees running against Florida when a receiver missed a block out there on the outside. Yeah. They actually scored a touchdown on it against Florida. They fumbled, and Mike Davis fell on it in the end zone. It wasn't a good-looking play.
It only worked when number 21 was back there.
It's just never been a good play of the past couple of years, and that's the play where they fumbled and Connor Mitch was injured. So you ripped that play out of the playbook, Steve Spurrier, among other things that you probably need to do. Here's the other thing. Connor Mitch, injured, comes out of the game. Perry Orth comes in, and he did provide a spark for the offense. Now, is it all because of him? Who knows? He played with a certain kind of poise. You can see it's a weird thing, and every fan, I'm not some kind of clairvoyant person where I can see things that other people don't. I don't pretend to, but you could see a different pocket presence with Perry Orth out there. He just seemed more comfortable than Connor Mitch's passes, sans the interception, which was a bad throw. He looked like a guy that was inexperienced and it was a walk-on 6 months ago, but he just seemed to have better poise and command, and he really does. Even talking to him in the preseason, he just carries himself, and I'm not saying this to insult Connor Mitch, but in contrast, Perry Orth does seem to have more of those intangibles, maybe not the skill set and the talent, but more of the intangibles in terms of the moment not being too big for him.
Well, I think probably one of the things here is Mitch is a little bit tentative right now. It seems that a receiver has to be almost wide open for him to throw the ball, where you saw Orth throwing at windows. It was a few times you and I came back, we're sitting there, and we saw coverage and say, where in the world is he throwing it, and bam, just as the receiver turned, the ball was there. So he has a little bit more courage in throwing the ball and putting it in there. He doesn't care where the coverage is. Good quarterbacks see windows. Quarterbacks who want to have success but tentative, they look for the receiver to be open. And sometimes you have to throw them open. That's what he did Saturday.
Yeah, and they had an opportunity to come back and win that game, but just a couple of plays got them beat. The first half, the defensive effort, the 2-minute drill where they gave up a touchdown, the missed field goal, the scoop and score on the botched 2-point conversion, the interception on first down. You just can't make that throw on first down. He had some room to run. Probably could have got 4 or 5 yards, and it's 2nd and 5. You're approaching the red zone, throwing across your body. Just not a throw you can make. Again, he's a guy that's playing his first significant minutes. Those are the things that happen when you have an inexperienced quarterback. But how does Perry Orth perform down the stretch? Can South Carolina win with Perry Orth as their quarterback? The offense was struggling before he came in. It's not like Connor Mitch was lighting it up before he got hurt. So I don't think people are really panicking so much because Connor Mitch went down, although that's a blow for the Gamecocks because Connor Mitch not playing means he's not going to develop and get better and have an opportunity to really show what he can do. They're going to Georgia, as I mentioned in the open. They're a 17-point underdog. Nobody's really going to give them much of a chance there to win that football game. Nick Chubb, who ran for 190 yards last week against Vanderbilt, might be chomping at the bit, certainly, to face a Gamecock defense that is struggling right now against the run. Going forward, you look at this South Carolina team, Pro, and you look at their schedule, and you're going, where are the wins? I mean, who do you feel really confident right now that the Gamecocks are going to beat? What road game do you think the Gamecocks are going to win this season? Are they going to beat Georgia in Georgia? Are they going to beat Tennessee in Tennessee? Are they going to beat Texas A&M in Texas A&M?
Well, we saw some weird things happen over the weekend. If you'd have told me Houston beats Louisville, I'd have said, no way. Toledo, I think they were the ones that got Arkansas, wasn't it? And then let's face it, another set of Gamecocks, Jacksonville State, for all intents and purposes, should have beaten Auburn. But Auburn every year has that great escape early in the season, and they pulled it off again. The interesting thing about the Gamecocks, I will say about this, Boosie Whitlow, some freshman that saw their first action, he was the one that forced the interception on the rush in the end zone. I thought Fenton outplayed Rico McWilliams when he got in the football game. We're going to see those guys more. And I think you're going to see Nunez more, at least in the red zone package. Because when you got a guy that's 6'3" and over 200 pounds at quarterback and isn't afraid to stick his nose in there on the zone read, you got to put a body like that in it.
Yeah, and offensively, Steve Spurrier is going to have to get creative. He's going to have to come up with unique ways to move the football. He's going to have to try to mask some of the deficiencies from Perry Orth. He's going to have to find guys not named Farrell Cooper to be in a role where they can step up. I don't know that Farrell Cooper can make it through 10 more games taking the beating that he's taken out there. He's returning punts. He's the focal point of the offense, and you have to use him and get the ball in his hands. But he was hobbling around a little bit on Saturday night. He said after the game he was fine, but he took a shot. One of those passes that he caught, I heard it in the press box. I mean, the windows are closed for the most part. It's a closed press box. You have a cracked window. We're up in the clouds. I think Moses was in the seat next to me. I heard the hit in the press box that he took when he lowered his helmet. The guy is not going to be able to continue to take that kind of beating game in and game out. So they have to find some other guys. And I think Nunez having a package for him, getting him out there. And this, let's face it, you lose to Kentucky at home. This season, if Steve Spurrier really isn't it for the long haul, they're going to have to find some things with these young guys and continue to build. They're in a rebuilding. This is not the Gamecock football team that you watched win 11 games for 3 straight years. They're not that team. They don't have that talent.
That defense looks salty to me. They have to make a couple of adjustments here, but their line is solid in my opinion.
Calls coming up. 800-956-7266, the toll-free number. We'll jump out to your calls now. Your thoughts on South Carolina, Kentucky, Clemson, Appalachian State, more importantly, Clemson, Louisville coming up on Thursday. Open for your phone calls now. You can also hit us up on Twitter at SportsTalkSC or drop us an email, talkback@sportstalksc.com as we roll out to the phones. Eric is in Barnwell, and he's leading us off tonight.
How y'all doing, K-Mac?
Well,
could y'all tell me something about a guy named DJ Neal, 4-star wide receiver? Why we don't at least try him or something, Carolina?
They are working in different guys out there right now, and I think Spurrier, his wheels, I'm sure, are turning right now with his offense and what he needs to do. He's kind of lamented the fact that guys aren't getting open. Carlton Hurd caught a pass, a significant gain, I think a 15, 20-yard pass there in the second half. But outside of Farrell Cooper, and Jarrell Adams, they don't really have a lot of guys that are getting open and catching the ball. Deebo Samuel was pretty much non-existent. He was in on a few plays, but didn't get a pass reception. Terry Gouger, these are guys that people thought were going to be role players, big-time players that were going to fill the void.
Caught 2 in the first game, but didn't see significant action in the second game. The key point is, though, good teams mask their weaknesses. I saw Alabama run the same game plan that South Carolina ran in the North Carolina game. They didn't throw the many wide receivers in that football game. Receivers will get open. I think Deebo Samuel is going to be a solid receiver. He just needs some experience, and he's got to know, and let's face it, there's little tricks. You got to know when to bump the guy, get him off you, and do things like everybody does that. That's part of the game. And you can tell in the North Carolina game, he was open a couple of times. He could have bumped the guy a little bit, got him off him, and got the reception.
Yeah.
He'll learn that as he goes along. But the key thing is right now is you got a quarterback with a little bit more confidence. And as I said the other night when I picked South Carolina to beat Kentucky, I said, but you got to be stubborn with the running game. But Spurrier gets enticed to throwing the football because he wants to see what the quarterbacks can do. And sometimes that's the worst thing to do. If I'm running 3 and 4 yards of crack, I'm handing it off till they stop me. There's nothing against the rule book that says you can't go on an 80-yard drive just running it down somebody's throat. And sometimes you got to do that.
He's done that a few times. At Tennessee a few years ago, they ran the ball 10, 11 straight times and scored a touchdown to ice the game and put it away. When they had Lattimore, he wasn't as afraid to do that. And I think Brandon Wilds, and we'll hear from Brandon Wilds coming up after the bottom of the hour, his comments after the game. I think Brandon Wilds wants to be used like that. This is a guy that was thinking about the NFL. A lot of people thought he might try to make that jump. He wanted to come back for his senior year, and I think he's saying, get me the ball more. And he carried the ball. He had 6.5 yards of carry. He wants to get more involved in the running game, and he might have a case. They were down 17, but around that goal line, give him some more cracks at it. We'll hear from Brandon Wilds. All your phone calls coming up as well.
Brandon, I know you said to your right. I know you said this week you wanted more carries. I know you said this week you wanted more carries. Do you feel like you got the ball enough tonight?
Take the loss and move on to the next game.
You're listening to Sports Talk on South Carolina Radio Network. Kevin McCrary and the Professor Tom Hayes with you tonight. Phil Kornblut with the night off for the Jewish holiday. Glad you are with us. If you want to be a part of the program, you can reach us 800-956-7266, toll-free call. If you are a little shy, maybe the phone is not your thing and you prefer the written word to the spoken, hit us up on Twitter and 140 characters or less at Sports Talk SC. Give us a follow there. Or you can drop us a little lengthier comments via email at talkback@sportstalk.sc and like us on Facebook at Sports Talk Radio Network. Coming up at 6:55, Kornblut is not here. Again, a Jewish holiday, but no holidays for recruiting. It presses on. We'll pass along the latest recruiting news in our next hour. Mike Morgan and our Braves report. Yes, the Braves are still playing baseball. We are going down with that ship. And at 7:25, the high school football update with Dave Sheldon, Mick Mixon, and the Carolina Panthers report also coming up later in the program. So a lot going on. We will take time for you. Deshaun Watson coming up this hour. And in just a couple of minutes, you'll hear those comments that a lot of people have been talking about with Brandon Wilds. There was a tweet out there that was linked to his Twitter account, very much unverified, that a lot of people have been asking us about, and I have not been able to verify that is true. I'm very skeptical that it is a legitimate tweet, but we do know what he said after the game was very much legitimate and very much true. In fact, let's go ahead and let you listen in on the Q&A with Brandon Wilds shortly after the Gamecocks loss, and we'll start with the opening question for Mr. Wilds.
Brandon, I know you said to your right. I know you said this week you wanted more carries. Do you feel like you got the ball enough tonight?
No, not at all.
Brandon, do you think in the second half this offense may have grown up tonight, that you were really clicking, moving the ball, that maybe you've got momentum going to Georgia now on offense?
The momentum, we had a lot of momentum. Perry came in there and pretty much he did a good job in my opinion. Just need to run the ball more.
To that last point, did he kind of mobilize y'all? Did he just bring some confidence in that wasn't there when Perry came in?
Small guy, but he has a lot of heart, so we got a lot of confidence in Perry.
What did you feel like the problems were when you got in the red zone?
I didn't get the ball.
Brandon, I mean, is this second guessing the play calling and the coaches that are calling the plays, or is this just saying, I'm seeing things, I'm seeing lanes, I should get the ball and go with it?
Well, I'm a player. I just get what the coach called me, so I just run what I'm told to do.
Brandon, you've been here a while. What's the mood like in the locker room right now?
Everybody's up. Nobody's down. So we just got to take the loss and move on to the next game.
Yeah, he didn't sound real upbeat there in the post game. And Steve Spurrier, in his Sunday teleconference, was asked specifically about those comments and if it bothered him that a player was publicly talking about wanting the ball more and thinking that he should get the ball more. And Spurrier said no. And he conceded to a certain degree that there were circumstances where they probably should have had Brandon in when they didn't. They had him rotating with David Williams, who hasn't really been able to find any consistent traction through 2 games of the season. But he said he doesn't have any problem that a running back wants the ball more. He kind of expects that. And offensive linemen like to run the ball. The bottom line is the Gamecocks they're a running team. And I know that's a hard thing for Steve Spurrier, but he's had running teams in the past. When they had Steven Garcia and Marcus Lattimore, they were a run-oriented team.
And even when Matt Lattimore went out with injury, they still ran the football. If I'm a coach, I'm like Spurrier. I'm not upset, especially if it's a senior who sees things, because let's face it, any smart person knows you don't know everything. And if I can't have a player come up to me and say, look, I need, give me the ball, I wouldn't have any problems with that. You think you see something? Let's go with it. It'll be interesting to see how much he gets the ball against Georgia.
It will be. And, Steve Spurrier had a news conference, an impromptu news conference during the summer, where he said his enemies were everywhere and not to listen to his enemies, using his age against him and saying they weren't going to be a good football team. And he said at the time he thought they were going to be a very good football team. Now, it's a long season. There are 10 games left, and you're not defined by the first 2 games. But it is not looking really promising right now for the Gamecocks. If you lose at home to Kentucky, that's not a very good omen for what's left of your season. And their enemies are starting to come out right now if you're Steve Spurrier. And he can add a former coach, Barry Switzer, to his list of enemies. Switzer was speaking today actually in Atlanta at a touchdown club in Atlanta, the Atlanta Touchdown Club, and had a few comments about Steve Spurrier and his age and whether Spurrier can coach another 5 or 6 years. And today the former Sooners and Cowboys coach was asked what he thought about Spurrier coaching at 70, and Switzer said age has nothing to do with anything. His age has nothing to do with him getting his ass beat a couple of days ago by Kentucky. That's pretty strong. And then somebody asked Switzer if he thinks he can still coach at 77. Hell yeah, I can still coach, Switzer said. I can recruit players and evaluate talent still. If I had a good product like I did at Oklahoma, I can still recruit and coach with no problem. The only thing that may change is I may use a golf cart more to get around now. So that's the story.
And not carry that gun in his bag.
Yeah. So Steve Spurrier is looking for an excuse about the Gamecocks' poor performance. He better not ask Switzer. So says the story here in the AJC. Now Spurrier's not using his age as an excuse. Every time he loses, though, and Korn was telling me on Twitter today, people are saying Spurrier, and this is where he is at 70 years old. Every time South Carolina loses a game or plays poorly, these questions are going to come up with Steve Spurrier. Is he going to quit? What's the plan? Should South Carolina start thinking about their next coach? I think you're kind of wasting your time spinning your wheels doing that. He's your coach now. Any year. I said this 5 years ago. Spurrier was always one big season away or one bad season away from walking away. He walked away suddenly at Florida. The people there and the athletic department will tell you they had no idea that he was going to leave when he left. He decided that was it. I'm ready to go to the NFL. I want to try this. So he was going to go to the Washington Redskins, and that's what he did. And Spurrier, he's going to be on a year-to-year thing. I know he's been saying the 5 to 6 more years, but if the Gamecocks only win 5 games this year, if they win 5 games, is Spurrier going to stick around? Is he going to stick around?
Here's my feeling. If he loses games, he's coming back. If he wins big, he's going to walk away. See, he's going to do the opposite of what people think he's going to do, because you want to leave when you're on top. I will say this. Spurrier had nothing to do with a personal foul call at the 2-yard line when you right at the doorstep. He had nothing to do with the fumble that turned out to be a 2-point conversion. 2 points the other way for Kentucky. No. Anything can happen in a football game. So, that's kind of.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing. You're right about that. And I don't think their talent has slipped over the past 3 years. Their talent is not where it was. They had 3 straight 11-win seasons. You'd think you could parlay that into landing some other recruits. They had an epic defection of commitments towards the end of last year. And I think in general, some of the guys they are landing just aren't as good. Now, Brad Lawing left. You look for something like, well, what's changed? Well, Brad Lawing, they have a new recruiting coordinator for the past few seasons, and Steve Spurrier Jr. Do you put it on him? Do you say the loss of Brad Lawing maybe affects them more than they thought in terms of going out and recruiting guys? He's a guy that went into Havelock, North Carolina, and plucked Farrell Cooper out. And he was a big factor. And Ellis Johnson also a big factor in landing guys out of Rock Hill like Jadeveon Clowney. Or maybe there are no Clowneys running around in Rock Hill right now.
There's
or
not.
Stephon Gilmore.
Because remember
or Marcus Lattimore.
Remember now,
or Vic Hamptons.
The first few years Spurrier was here, sputtering around the 500 mark. Brad Lawing was also here.
Their talent level has slipped from 3 years ago dramatically.
But they still got good talent to win if they play right.
Sports Talk is presented in part by South Carolina soybean farmers and their checkoff. Learn more at scsoybeans.org. Pork powered by soy. And hate to pass along a story like this, just a horrific story out of the upstate. A legendary upstate high school football coach was one of two men gunned down this morning, and now there's been an arrest. There's been confirmation that one of the victims was Bill Isaacs, the former head football coach at Pickens High School, who's a member of the South Carolina High School Football Coaching Hall of Fame. Hash, according to the report that I'm reading here from WYFF Channel 4 in the upstate, Albert Leon Bowen, 64, was arrested in connection to the shooting. Bowen's property is adjacent to the intersection where the men were killed. The preliminary investigation information indicates the shooting may have stemmed from an ongoing dispute between Bowen and one of the victims. Detectives seized 2 weapons from Bowen's home. Just a terrible story there at the scene at the intersection of Homestead Road and Gillian Road off Highway 178, just outside of Pickens. Been down that stretch of highway many times. That's just a horrible story there out of the upstate. All right, coming up, we will have some comments from Deshaun Watson, Clemson quarterback, getting ready to face Louisville for the second time in his career, although really the first time. He only played a few snaps before he injured himself or was injured against the Cardinals at Death Valley last year. And they'll make that trek to Papa John's Stadium. And I know Louisville lost to Houston, and that did take some of the luster away from this game, Pro. But Clemson better be ready for Louisville's best shot. They are going to get Louisville's best shot in that game. The Tigers are a 5-point road favorite on a Thursday night. They're 2-0. They have steamrolled their first 2 opponents. They're looking great. But they better be ready for a big challenge there at Louisville, a team with its back against the wall that's going to throw everything in the kitchen sink. Bobby Petrino is going to throw it all at them on Thursday night.
Well, the interesting thing is I thought when they made their comeback in the Georgia Dome, that Louisville team, even though they got beat by Auburn, looked better than the one I saw of the bits I saw against Houston. Now, I will say this, and I know it sounds cliche, but I think they got caught peeking. Thursday night, national TV, Clemson comes to town. Not the fact that maybe even their coaches have been working on stuff for Clemson and not Houston, but I think that's going to be a dynamite football game. Now, if Deshaun Watson wants to see anything that's kind of comfortable to him, he'll be throwing against Shaq Wiggins and Harvey Clemens. So he's seen those 2 in the secondary. They just happen to be playing for Georgia at that time.
That's true. He won't be the first time he's facing those guys who defected over to Louisville from Georgia. Just going to be a huge game for both teams. But the Cardinals are playing for everything now. Their season is on the line, and it's a big game for Clemson too. And the fact that it's their ACC opener, it's their first true test. We knew they were going to beat Wofford. We knew they were going to beat Appalachian State. Now, not only did Clemson win those games, they won them convincingly. Yes. They did exactly what you're supposed to do against those teams. They didn't mess around. The offense got off to a little bit of a slow start against App State, but then they hit the gas hard in the second quarter and scored 28 points. And that's what you do. Okay, you're spinning your wheels a little bit. You get everything together. Everybody had a mini heart attack when Deshaun Watson got the air knocked out of him, jumping on a bad snap. But by and large, the Tigers did everything right. The run game didn't look outstanding. Dabo Swinney said Sunday that the offensive line played okay, not great, just okay. They're going to have to play better than okay against Louisville. They're going to have to get Wayne Gallman and the running back going. Deshaun Watson's going to have to find some lanes and probably do a little more with his feet than he's done in the first couple of games. The defense just needs to maintain. They have been outstanding, an outstanding performance by the defense. Again, you do have to look at competition, but they've done their job. They haven't been gashed by teams that shouldn't be gashing them. So Clemson is checking all the boxes through the first 2 games. Now they'll go on the road, short turnaround, to face an angry Louisville team. Now, sometimes a team that has struggled the way Louisville has, guys can check out, cash in, not be motivated. But I think this early in the season, and with Bobby Petrino roaming the sidelines, Louisville hasn't started 0-3 in a long, long time. And there's a lot of pride on those sidelines. There's a lot of people that are having their manhood questioned right now around that campus and in those locker rooms and in those meetings this week at Louisville. They're going to be ready. Mark my words, they will be ready. Clemson's going to get Louisville's best shot. The question is, will they be able to handle it on a Thursday night with a quick turnaround? All right, let's jump into some recruiting. Kornblut not here, so I will do my best. And I will do this with a full heart and great intentions to pass along the latest in recruiting. Offensive lineman Pete Leota of Asheville made an official and actually an unofficial visit to USC Saturday night. He'll take the next few days to work a decision between the Gamecocks and Virginia Tech. He'll announce Thursday afternoon. Leota also made an unofficial visit to Virginia Tech for the Ohio State game. The purpose of the two visits was to give him one more meeting with the coaches and one more game day experience at both locations. He said his visit was great at South Carolina. The fans are crazy. As for what stood out the most, he said coaches like Sean Elliott. He's been favoring USC since attending camp in late July and felt that way after visiting Plattsburgh, but he wants to go into this week with an open mind. And he said he's going to compare the two schools now and make his decision Thursday, and said that both schools are even. USC has offered 2017 running back Brian Robinson out of Tuscaloosa, Alabama. 2017 running back Amon Reeves of Augusta visited Clemson for the Wofford game, and he went to Vanderbilt this past weekend. 2017 quarterback Chase Bryce of Loganville, Georgia, plans to make a trip to Clemson for the Notre Dame game. He was at Michigan State over the weekend. He's also planning to visit Kentucky, Alabama, Florida State at some point in the near future. Two top in-state prospects had monster games Friday night. Running back Stephen Davis Jr. of Dutch Fork scored 7 touchdowns, and linebacker TJ Brunson of Richland Northeast said he was credited with 25 tackles. Brunson, a commitment to Louisville. Stephen Davis Jr. was a commitment to Auburn, recently decommitted and opened things up, although Auburn still in the mix there. Basketball news. Hammond guard Seventh Woods made an official visit to Georgetown over the weekend and said he loved it. He has official visits to USC and Clemson still to come. before he will make his decision. Last week, some basketball internet sites reported that 6'8" Romello White was going to take an official visit to USC over the weekend, but another basketball site reported Saturday White went on an unofficial visit to Georgia Tech on Saturday. White, a Sewanee, Georgia native, attended IMG Academy in Bradenton, Florida. Now he's headed back home to Wheeler High School. Some of his other offers: Tennessee, Iowa State, Virginia Tech, Kansas, Virginia Tech, Kansas State, and Middle Tennessee State. 2017 guard Devontae Shuler out of Irmo and now Oak Hill Prep, Virginia, was offered by NC State. Clemson's also offered 2018 6'6" guard Retchen Black out of Concord, North Carolina. And a baseball note, right-handed pitcher Cole Beavan of Ocollie, Florida, committed to USC. There's your recruiting. If you want more, check out our website, sportstalksc.com. Lots of recruiting posted for you there. We have some Gamecocks-only recruiting. Corn does for GoGamecocks.com, but everything is at the website, sportstalksc.com. It's updated 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, even on holidays. Check it out for your recruiting news. Top of the hour break, plenty to do in hour number 2. Don't go away.
Live from Columbia, this is Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network. Be a part of tonight's show. Call us at 800-956-7266 or email talkback@sportstalksc.com. Now, here are your hosts for Sports Talk, Phil Kornbluth, Kevin McCrary, and Tom Hayes.
We continue hour number 2 here on Sports Talk, and that means it's time for Mike Morgan and the Braves. They are still playing baseball. A lot of people have given up on the Braves, but our Braves report, which is also parlaying into a little college football talk as well with Morgan, is brought to you by Founders Federal Credit Union, helping South Carolinians achieve their financial goals. Check out foundersfcu.com for more information, and by Elite Roofing and Restoration, the most reliable roofers in the Palmetto State. For a free estimate, call 803-753-0530. All right, Mike, the Braves, they lost 3 games again. What else is new?
Yeah, I think they're about ready to call Elite Roofing and put a roof on this season. It's been a long year, and with the exception of a couple of minor things and players to look for, there's not a whole lot of positives. Oliveira's been coming on. That's been nice to see. A couple of the young pitchers have shown signs that maybe next year with a little more polish, a little more seasoning, they'll be ready to be mainstays, hopefully for years to come. But other than that, it's been a really long second half. I'm not going to lie to you. I maintain it's the worst roster in baseball going right now, and that's saying a lot because there's some bad teams out there. They're not quitting. They still play hard. They had a good effort yesterday against a very good Mets team, and of course is red hot, playing as good a baseball maybe as anybody in Major League Baseball. But of course, the Mets found a way to win, as they do. The Braves found a way to lose, as they have done most of the season, and that's why one team is going to be in the postseason and why the other team is potentially going to have the first pick in the draft.
Well, they play the Phillies beginning tomorrow, I think.
Blue Jays.
Blue Jays, okay. Well, I was thinking of the Phillies because now the Phillies have company since the Braves have now dropped into the cellar with the Phillies. Any importance to not lose going into the cellar, or is it the NFL where you want the number 1 pick?
I don't know if it's either one. There's a kid at Texas A&M, an outfielder that a lot of people think would be the number 1 pick in the draft. And certainly the Braves could use a nice everyday player in the draft. But it's not like the NFL where there's a stud quarterback and the motivation to finish number 1 versus number 2 or 3 is so grand. I don't think baseball teams approach it that way. And by the same token, I mean, when you hear guys on the pre and post game show talking about the fight to stay ahead of the Phillies, I mean, honestly, I don't really think that's number 1 on the players' minds right now. Certainly not on the fans' minds. Everybody's they're kind of taking inventory on the season. They know what it is. And it's just one of those where you try to get through unscathed and get ready for a much better 2016.
All right, Mike, we're out of time. I wanted to talk to you about your trek to Stillwater in T. Boone Pickens country. We'll have to ask you about that tomorrow night when we catch up with you on the Braves report. You take care, and fortunately the Braves don't play tonight, so they're not going to lose again between now and our next Braves report. couple of notes that we want to pass along, and then upcoming here in just a couple of minutes, Clemson quarterback Deshaun Watson from earlier this afternoon. USC's game next week against UCF has been tabbed for a noon kickoff at Williams-Brice. It'll be televised by ESPN2 or ESPNU. By the way, UCF will also have its backup quarterback going in that matchup. They lost their starter, Justin Hallman, in last week's game against Stanford. He's going to miss 2 to 4 weeks with a hand injury, and they have a true freshman now, Bo Schneider, as their starter. So they're dealing with some issues there. That's a game, South Carolina. I think you can still circle that one as a win. You can circle that one as a win. You can circle Vanderbilt as a win. You can circle the Citadel as a win. So there's 3 more wins. That gets you to 4. After that, you're on your own at that point. I think they'll probably beat somebody else in that group to get to 5. But you find 6 wins on that schedule right now.
It would be It would be very difficult, but I think a lot of talk in the other Columbia was the same after they got beat by Indiana. So stranger things have happened.
Yeah, it's a long season. There are 10 weeks left, and teams you would hope would improve, but losing Mitch, there's a lot of things working against the Gamecocks right now. Tigers defensive end, Clemson Tiger defensive end Shaq Lawson, this week's ACC Co-Defensive Player of the Week. He had 3 tackles for a loss and a sack in the win over Appalachian State. Coastal Carolina easily dispatched South Carolina State over the weekend, and the Chants continue to hold the top spot in the FCS coaches poll. They're number 2 in the media poll behind Jacksonville State. The Gamecocks number 1 in that poll after their showing against Auburn. I was watching that game in the first half when they had the lead. And, sometimes teams have that fluky lead. That's a very good-looking football team. They have some athletes that they look like they belonged on the field with Auburn. That wasn't a scrub team out there that was just lucking into hanging with Auburn. They were out there playing ball with Auburn.
Which is why the team up the road in Tuscaloosa does not play in-state teams, because Jacksonville State just wanted a piece of somebody because they are in Alabama, and they got a piece of Auburn and almost took it. That is almost the 5th or 6th Houdini act I've seen Auburn pulled over the last 5 or 6 years, when they take an opponent lightly and able to wake up right at the last.
If you're a really good team and you have a lot of talent, you can overcome it when you don't have your best day. When you have a paper-thin margin for error, like Steve Spurrier has mentioned with his team against Kentucky, small margin of error, they made too many mistakes. They weren't able to overcome them. Clemson hasn't made very many mistakes in their first 2 games. They've blown out Wofford and Appalachian State, respectively. Now Deshaun Watson will lead the Tiger offense into Louisville to take on the Cardinals, and he sat down with the media today. Today is his 20th birthday, by the way. Deshaun Watson turning 20. Doesn't remember a whole heck of a lot about last year's game against Louisville.
Really, it was just kind of, for me, it was like a blur. Really just played maybe 3 series, and then I got hurt, and I was out for the rest of the game. So I know that those guys was going to be, very, very prepared and, excited about playing against us. And they're going to be fired up, and, we are too. So really just, for me, I don't really remember too much. Just really that final play that, J-Ron Curse made, and then the defense made a stand at the goal line. And that was kind of, the only thing I really remember. Nothing. I was just trying to breathe. I lost my breath. The ball kind of hit me in my rib, and, I couldn't really breathe. So, really, I was just trying to catch my breath, and it wasn't nothing serious. Denny just, DP just told me to, just try to sit up and try to catch my breath before we walk off, and then that's what happened, and I came right back in. It just really comes natural. For this offense, it's not really, designed for me to run. We have 6 running backs that can run the ball, and we have some playmakers, outside, and that can, catch and make, some big plays. So, if I have to run, then I run. But, that's not my first, option. My opinion is, I like to throw the ball, before I start to run. So, we have guys that can take care of that job.
Do you like running?
I do. I like I just like the whole game. I love the position that I'm in and that I can run and throw. So, very athletic, very well coached, and they're going to be fired up to play against us. a great team. They had some breaks, first 2 weeks, but they're gonna come fired up Thursday night, and they're playing home, so we got to bring our A game. Not at all, because each week we have a standard that we play to. We're not focused on the other opponent's problems or issues or their record or what they have going on. So each week we got to come ready to play, because we're gonna get everyone's best. And this Thursday is gonna be a fun one. I wouldn't say it mattered more. I think each game, for me, having that experience of injuries last year, I appreciate the game even more. Opportunity, so I'm gonna go in ready to play and bring my A game. When I first had it, I kind of did, but as weeks went by, months went by, everything happens for a reason, and it just for me, it was just one of those things that kind of happened, and that's something I couldn't control. So nothing that I'm afraid of, or it's gonna be on the back of my mind. Yeah, I enjoy it. This is what I came to Clemson for. Games like this, to play on national television and have people look at us and watch us play and perform. So this is the moment that I've been dreaming for since middle school, that I want to play college football. And committing here and signing the papers, I knew that games like this is going to come and happen each year. So I had to prepare and be ready for it. And I think I'm ready for the moment. Really just, I bet every player does, but just really whenever the ball is kicked off and, after that first play, I'm ready to go. I just be anxious to, get on the field and, tired of the waiting and, just ready to get out there and just play ball.
Is it harder when it's a night game?
I don't think so. I guess, for some people it might be, but for me I'm used to the night. And, I'm ready for every moment. Anytime, we kick off, I'm going to be ready. So, nah, because I think every moment I'm going to be calm. That's just the person I am. I don't let, thing or too much, distract me or get me rattled. I've always been taught, snap and clear, which is, after one play, move on to the next. My high school coach, Coach Perry, taught me that. So that's always on my mind. I never, try to get, rattled, because, you never know when that next moment, I have to, perform and make that big play. So, I can't let it be on my mind. Really just enjoy it. This is what you came here for. You've been dreaming about this moment for a long time, and now it's here. Just last year you were playing high school football, and now you're playing, big time college football on prime time. So, it's the time to, show the world what you can do, and just be yourself. Don't think too much, and just have fun. The game is simple. It's still, you still have the touchdown and the, the ball. So the only thing is, it's just more people understand and more people watching. So just really, have fun, enjoy the moment, and just be yourself. Just really communicate better. Make sure we're on the same page, and just really make sure that we have the, the right play calling in, and just for me, just leading those guys and making sure that we don't get frustrated, and everyone from the receivers, running backs, myself, and the O-line, that we have the right calls, and we have this right mindset, going into every play.
Deshaun Watson, if you want to hear more from him, head over to the website, sportstalksc.com. There's a lot of Clemson interviews posted there, videos of Deshaun Watson, Shaq Lawson. Let's see who we have. Tony Elliott's up there, Eric McLean. Lots of interviews for you to enjoy there, getting you ready for the quick turnaround. Just a couple of days until Clemson takes on Louisville. Time for our Sports Talk High School football report, a service of Farm Bureau Insurance. With new auto insurance rates from Farm Bureau Insurance, you could be saving a whole lot of money, even if you've received a quote before. Rates are now more competitive than ever. Get a free quote today from your local Farm Bureau Insurance agent. David Shelton joining us now from the High School Sports Report, and another weekend in the books. David, what stood out in your mind Friday night?
Well, Kev, I was thinking about this today. There really weren't any upset. I mean, really games that you would call major upsets for the first time this year. But I guess Somerville shutting out Goose Creek, first time Goose Creek's been shut out in about 10 years. That would probably be classified as an upset. But the games that people were really paying attention to, Newberry Chapin. Chapin won that game. They were the favored team. Spartanburg, Gaffney, Spartanburg kind of pulled away and won that game. So, most of, I guess the biggest performance of the night was at Northwestern, where they really pounded on Greenwood. I mean, well, I shouldn't say pounded. They spread them out and threw it all over them. And Gage Maloney threw for 449 yards and about 6 touchdowns. But, it was a night where, you had a couple of weeks where it was some really good games and a lot of, a few upsets and some things like that. And then that was kind of the lull. And now in the next couple of weeks, we'll start region play and it'll get serious again.
And coming up, this weekend, I know you're kind of hitting not the midway point of the season, but teams starting to hit their stride a little bit right now.
Yeah. I mean, I think most teams are going to be playing their 4th game, this week. They've been at it a month, had some action against live bullets, so to speak. And I think what you're seeing, the really good teams that everybody thought was going to be, really good are really good. There really is not a 1 or 2 teams that are just kind of disappointing. Looking over the kind of the standings and the records, just nothing that stands out in terms of, wow, this team is really bad. And we thought they were going to be really good. But, it'll all shake out. When you get into region play, a lot of these good teams play against each other. So, it's just kind of the calm before the storm. Then we get into week 6 and it's really, starting to hit the peak and it gets a lot of fun. But, there's, for week 5 as there are at the beginning and at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I guess it was a couple of weeks ago, I watched on television Northwestern against Irmo. And, of course, Irmo is not a good football team this year, but that Northwestern team looked like a juggernaut. Are they the best team right now in the state?
No, I wouldn't think so, because Burns has beaten them. I think Spartanburg's the best 4A team in the state. I think offensively they're just capable of scoring so many ways. They got, the nation's #1 tailback. They got a really good quarterback, a really good receiver. They're much improved on defense. I think Northwestern's going to be in that mix. I think Burns, West Side, Northwestern, and Spartanburg are probably, the 4 teams that everybody will be looking in November to see which one of those comes out of it.
David, we appreciate it. David Shelton joining us from the High School Sports Report. We'll catch up with him again Friday night to get a look at the big games coming up over the weekend.
Yeah, quarterback Connor Mitch. About wanted Lorenzo. That's what we'll try to do. We'll try to do. We actually lose the ball. We'll try to do. Try to do. Yeah.
This segment on Sports Talk presented by Future Scholar, South Carolina's 529 college savings plan. Back to school time is a great time to invest in a loved one's college education. Visit futurescholar.com for more information. Some comments from Steve Spurrier off his Sunday call coming up. You can get the clarification on Connor Mitch's injury, which wasn't as bad as initially diagnosed by Spurrier after the game against Kentucky, but still going to be out for a significant amount of time. And his response to the comments from Brandon Wilds when he was questioning why he didn't get the ball more, specifically in the red zone. But first, let's jump to some emails. Talkback at sportstalksc.com. Some emails coming in tonight that we will get to. Here's one from Roger. Said he was listening to a talk show earlier today, and one of the hosts said Spurrier is to blame for getting away from running Wilds in the red zone and that he runs with a purpose, whereas David Williams should be benched when they get down there. The way he runs, tentative and straight up, 5 carries for 18 yards. What do y'all think? Is there any hope for a Bull at all? I agree, Pro, that I would take Wilds right now over Williams, who has not been able to get any consistent traction. He is not running as confident and as hard as Wilds right now. I would agree with that assessment. They must see something in David Williams that they like because they keep giving him opportunities, but he has not been very consistent in running the football. As for a Bull, is there hope? Yeah, there's always hope. There's still 10 games left, so there's definitely hope, but you should be a little nervous right now if you're South Carolina.
And Wilds, but the interesting thing is I thought the young players that got in the football game, which is why I think some wide receivers need to be given a try. As I said, Boosie Whitlow was the one that put the pressure on the quarterback early in the game that set up Sky Moore's interception. You got some, and Jalen Christian needs to be out there to try him out at punt return, because you can't, if you got your best player who's playing special teams, running the Wildcat, going out and catching every pass that's thrown to him, he's not gonna last very long. I think the young receivers have to be worked in. DJ Neal, who they talked about a lot during the preseason workouts, need to be put in there. Gujar needs to be put in there. For anything, those are the type of guys that you can throw to, even if covered, especially by a short defensive back, because of their height. I think we're talking about guys around 6'2", 6'3".
They need to find out who can play and get them out there, and it's they don't have a cupcake game to kind of find themselves. They're thrown into the fire here. They have Georgia. Now, I think UCF is as close to a cupcake as you're going to get until later in the season. And no, the Citadel's 2-0. I'm not trying to disparage you folks. I know there's a lot of Bulldogs listening to the show, but the Gamecocks should handle the Citadel. And that should be a game where they can kind of get things right. But that's the next to last game of the season. By then, your season's cast. So they need to find some answers quickly. And I agree with Pro. They need to get some guys out there running around and playing.
And also, you look at the red zone and even some areas of the field, even with a Nunez in there, it sets up so many things for you because linebackers got to stay at home. Because if he comes out of that pocket, and he showed some speed on the one run he had. I know it was in a prevent defense, but still you could see he was closing ground, quickly going toward the red zone. You got to put a guy in there because it takes some things the defense does well, like coming up for the run, especially on the handoff, because they're afraid this guy's going to come around the end and just burn them. So it'd be interesting to see where and how they use Nunez, especially if they try to use him in the red zone.
Get your best players on the field, playmakers. And if Nunez can make plays, find a way to get the ball in his hands some. If Braxton Miller's playing quarterback right now, was playing quarterback, now he's playing wide receiver. So Urban Meyer said, I got to get the guy on the field. I'm going to find a way to get him on the field so we keep him out there so he's not standing on the bench. I'm not saying that that's what you have in Nunez, but you have to come up with solutions, and Steve Spurrier is going to have to get creative and think outside of the box. We're going to find out what kind of offensive juices he still has right now. Okay, we'll get back to the emails. I have some others I want to get to and some tweets, but we're talking about Steve Spurrier. We're talking about the Gamecock football team and some of the things happening there. So let's hear it straight from the HBC's mouth here. First, an update on Connor Mitch and some other issues going on with his team.
Yeah, quarterback Connor Mitch sustained a separated shoulder, but his biggest problem was a bruise that he suffered actually against North Carolina, and he got hit again. So actually he's in the hospital right now, probably spend a couple of days getting some IV and trying to get rid of maybe sort of an infection in his hip area. So Connor is definitely out for maybe a little 4 to 6 weeks, according to Dr. Death Guy. Other than that, I think we came out in pretty good shape injury-wise. Proud of the way guys played the second half. We didn't play real smart at times, but the effort was I thought very good in the second half. And it's a game we had a lot of chances to win, but we didn't do it. So we got to move on, get it behind us, and start preparing for the Georgia Bulldogs tomorrow.
Coach, this is Chip Towers with the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. I guess as conference openers go, losing your quarterback, losing the game, you can't get off to much of a worse start than that. But how much of a salve would beat Georgia provide? And I'm sure that's your focus at this point.
Yeah, we'll get ready to play our best against Georgia in Athens. I think it's Saturday at 6 o'clock. They look awfully strong as usual, but I think our guys will look forward to playing the game.
After the game last night, Brandon Wiles was pretty firm that he thought he didn't get the ball enough, specifically in the red zone. Did you see those comments? Are you okay with them saying stuff like that, or would you rather keep that in-house?
Well, to tell you the truth, we should have put him at the other back position. We had him sort of crossing with David, and they both had a couple of runs where we didn't block a guy down there. And, of course, when you run the ball and you don't make any yards, you should have thrown it. When you throw it incomplete, you should have run it. But I don't have too many problems with Brandon. Want the ball, running backs want the ball, offensive linemen. A lot of them like to run block. So we messed up a few assignments in our run blocking that hurt us yesterday. But we just got to get back coaching and get ready for the next game.
Steve, is what you saw out of Perry in the second half, what you've seen of him in practice? I mean, is he capable of leading this team long term?
Yeah, I think Perry really threw some nice balls last night. Obviously, his one bad one was the interception there at the end on first down. But we got confidence in Perry. Yeah, we just, we were one play away from coming back and beating those guys, but we didn't do it. So give Kentucky credit. They played very well the first half, and they played good red zone defense and kept us out of the end zone.
All right, there's Steve Spurrier from his conference call Sunday, and you can hear the whole call on our website, sportstalksc.com. And, Spurrier, he's a guy that for 70 years old, he's aged great, as we all know. He does not look like a 70-year-old man, but after a loss and listening to him there, he sounded like a 70-year-old man. He could barely talk. And that's when sometimes you look at Spurrier after those tough games, and he looks old, and he doesn't usually look that way. I mean, he usually has a lot of life and very sharp and quick, but when he gets beat like that and takes a hard loss like he did against Kentucky. Now, I don't know that was a harder loss than the one they had against Kentucky last year when Kentucky scored 21 in the last 8 minutes. Tennessee was definitely when they blew the big lead, and Missouri. So they lost. At least they lost in a different way than they were losing last year. They kept fighting. I mean, if you want to look for positives, you can find some positives. Perry Orr played well in the second half. The Gamecocks didn't lay down and quit when they were down 17. They gave themselves a chance. But, boy, I mean, you look at that schedule, you look at some of the pieces they have there.
The first game, next game.
Panthers show Bortles a 4-3. Bortles is going to throw, intercepted. Norman may score. 20 down the left sideline. 15-10. It is a touchdown. No flags. Josh Norman took it to the house.
Coastal Carolina representing the Carolina Panthers Sunday in Jacksonville. Josh Norman getting it done. Mick Mixon joining us now. And, hey, you always want to open the season with the win, Mick.
Well, we were just discussing this downstairs. I'm at home now. I just got home from doing Panther Talk, and we're having somehow or another, I got myself elected to the neighborhood POA. So we're having a board meeting tonight, and I was just telling Jordan Gross lives in my neighborhood, so he and I were just talking about this win, Kevin, reminds me of a prom date I had once. Not all that pretty, but I was daggum glad to have it. And so the Panthers hope to upgrade our social status later in the season, but for now, half the teams in the NFL are or will be either 0-1 or 1-0. And the Panthers showed a lot of toughness, a lot of grit and resolve to get to 1-0, and the team is tickled to death to have won that game.
That's like that old expression in golf. You can bounce it off a golf cart, hit a tree, the rake, but you make par. There's no pictures on the scorecard. There's no pictures on the record book. It just goes down as a win.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, I know. I had a friend of mine made a hole-in-one once. He chunked it or sculled it or whatever, and the ball goes skating across the ground. It's still a one. It still adds up slowly.
That's right. That's right. Well, Luke Kuechly, that was the biggest blow of the game as he goes out with a concussion, going through the protocol. But Coach Rivera seems to feel pretty good about where he is, at least right now.
There are people that I think would probably give a couple of months off their life if they could have Luke Kuechly never get hurt or never have anything happen to him. Such is the emotion that Luke Kuechly provokes in Panther fans. Ron Rivera said today, Kevin, that Luke Kuechly seemed a lot like Luke, seemed like his old self from a personality standpoint. Not trying to diagnose him or anything, because he may miss a game or two, or he may be back for the Houston game. I just don't know. But he seemed good on the plane coming back. Luke did. He was talking to his mom after the game on his phone, and spent a lot of time with Greg Olson looking at film and going over plays. So hopefully it's not a bad one.
Now, when you look at what happened yesterday with Cam, is he still feeling out his receiving core at this juncture?
Yeah, I don't know, Pro. I don't know what words I would assign to it. Yours are as good as any I could think of, feeling them out. I think that all Cam can really do, just like a hunter has no control over the bullet once he pulls the trigger, all Cam can do is put it right in the bullseye. Just put the ball right there. And then what happens after that, I guess I would look at it this way. It's if you're a parent, maybe look at it this way. It's not your job to make your kids happy. It's their job to make you happy. And I think that's the way Cam should or possibly does feel about his receiving core right now.
I need to get my kids on that plan ASAP.
Well, we looked at with Benjamin, who turned out to be, I think, Mick, in my eyes, better than the Panthers thought they had when they drafted him. They know they had a good potential, but I think he just outkicked his coverage last year. But this guy Funchess has tremendous range as far as his arms and his height is concerned. I think he had one or two drops yesterday, but is he a guy you see becoming a focal point as the season goes on?
If he catches the ball, yes. I think for right now, Pro, the Panthers are going to ride it out with Philly Brown, Ted Ginn, as the starting two receivers in the two receiver sets, and then mix in Jericho Cotchery, just like the Panthers did yesterday. I think that, and then Funchess as well. So I think those are the four. Those are the iron four, because the other receiver would be Joe Webb, and he counts on special teams. Funchess is supposed to be a good catcher of the ball. He has good hands, and he's a smooth receiver, but his rookiness was on display a little bit yesterday, don't you think?
Yeah, it was. It was.
Well, now you have Houston coming up. That means that J.J. Watt will be rolling into the Queen City. Oh, and that Clowney guy's coming, too. Clowney coming as the hashtag.
Did he play well yesterday? I haven't watched the tape of that game yet. I will later in the week. But, of course, Vince Wilfolk and J.J. Watt siphon off a lot of the attention. How did Clowney play yesterday?
I haven't seen anything, Mick, but I've always said these guys get paid thousands for coaching these guys. But I swear I'd have him lined up with his hand on the ground. This outside linebacker nonsense, I just don't see him playing that position.
Really? Is he stout enough to hold up against the run if teams try to run at him if he's lining up in a 3-point stand?
Yes.
Yeah, he was, again, it's a different level. The thing about Clowney yesterday, and I only watched a little bit of the game as I was scrolling through all the channels there enjoying the NFL ticket, but he had a quiet game in terms of his stats, but at least from his standpoint, he made it through the game, coming off that microfracture surgery healthy, and he'll be out there, hopefully a bigger role they plan on for him starting next week with the Panthers.
I hope he has a great year starting after this weekend. I say that in the most respectful way possible, of course.
I'm sure. Mick, we appreciate it. Always enjoy listening to you. Always enjoy talking to you. And we'll do so again next week here on Monday night, hopefully after another Panthers win, 1-0, heading back home for their opener at Bank of America Stadium against the Houston Texans. Talking about the Houston Texans rolling into Charlotte Sunday to face the Panthers. There will be a lot of local connections on that Texans sideline. We mentioned J.D. Clowney. Then you have Nuke Hopkins. They still just call him DeAndre in the NFL. They haven't figured out that we still call him Nuke here in the Palmetto State. He had a couple of touchdowns yesterday. Nuke played very well. He's their number one wide receiver now with Andre Johnson with the Colts. And Jonathan Joseph will be out guarding one of those Panther receivers. Who will Joseph be on? He'll be on the Panthers' best receiver probably. So pick a guy, spin the Panther receiver wheel, and decide who you think the best receiver is going to be that given day.
Well, and also he's not playing, but up in the owner's box will be Bob McNair, a South Carolina graduate who's the owner of the Texans.
Let's go back to the email box, talkback@sportstalksc.com. Jim, put Jim in parentheses there. I recall K-Mac making fun of Dabo last year for suggesting Humphreys may play at the next level. Looks like he made the roster at Tampa Bay. I guess Dabo isn't always talking in hyperbole after all. No, he's not always talking in hyperbole. Here's a little trivia fact for Adam Humphreys and for Clemson fans in general. You could probably win a beer down the road on this one. Jameis Winston's first NFL pass was intended for Adam Humphreys. It was intercepted by Cody Sensabaugh and returned for a touchdown. So it was intended for a Clemson Tiger, and it was picked off by another Clemson Tiger and returned for a touchdown against the Florida State Heisman Trophy winner. I thought that was pretty interesting.
And let's face it, you have to give him his props against a porous defense, but you still give him his props. His first NFL game, Marcus Mariota looked like Johnny Unitas out there yesterday.
4 touchdowns. He was very impressive there in that Titans win. The late game Sunday night, still trying to figure out what the heck the Giants did to blow that thing. That was just an abysmal performance. They were trying not to score up 3 inside the 5. Now they admit they were trying not to score. Not only were they trying not to score, apparently they were trying to stop the clock with a Cowboy team that was out of timeouts. Throwing a pass, an incomplete pass that gave them the ball back with down 6. And Tony Romo, who gets a ton of heat. I've never understood the hating on Tony Romo. That Dallas didn't have a defense for a while. The guy would throw for 450 yards and throw an interception trying to bring them back because the defense couldn't stop anybody. He has more fourth-quarter comebacks than anybody in the NFL since 2006. So give him a little bit of credit. The guy isn't god-awful. Now, he's had some bad – I'm not going to put him in the Hall of Fame, but he was taking a lot of heat. Well, hey, Fluffer's not – you're coming back and winning games, Pope. That's not fluff. That's winning a game. He's up there with the Mannings and the other big comeback for him last night. And Eli Manning's won 2 Super Bowls, but now he's a bum. Knee-jerk reactions, right? That's what we do in sports.
He's a rich bum.
No, yeah, Eli will be fine. That was just goofy. Tom Coughlin knows how to coach, but that's football. We appreciate it. Talking Tuesday, Corn's heading up to Clemson. I'll be catching up with the head ball coach. We'll have it all covered for you tonight on Sports Talk. See you then.